Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Kabbalat Shabbat service on Zoom. As we're approaching the end of the fast, but the fast doesn't end until after Shabbat starts, quite unusual. And it's the only fast it happens with. So
don't tell it all that. It's my,
sorry, what did you say?
You might as well do my talk then.
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, welcome everyone to our Kabbalat Shabbat. And we're starting with a Devar Torah from Leigh. We're very excited about that. So over to you, Leigh.
Thank you very much. Good Shabbos, good evening, everybody. Yesterday, which was the 9th of Teves, was the yahrzeit of my friend Robert Zimmerman Bright. Some of you may have met him. He only was well enough to ever come to Kenton Shore once. Yes, it was his yahrzeit, so Me'alev Ben Avraham. I'm sure he's resting peacefully. So this is dedicated to his memory. Today is the 10th of Teves. It's a fast day. It's the only fast that can happen on a Friday. What is the actual history behind this fast? According to the second book of Kings, that on the 10th day of the 10th month in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, which takes us to the year 588 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar II began the siege of Jerusalem. A siege which went on for 18 months until the 17th of Tammuz, at which point there was a break. They broke through the walls of Jerusalem, and then which makes it the year 586 BCE. And then 3 weeks later, the temple was destroyed, as it was in Roman times. But this is the first destruction of the temple. The elite, the noble people or the elite people of Israel were then carted off into exile to Babylon, which is where they stayed for a long time. It is the only fast that we have on a Friday. But the point is that this was the beginning of a terrible period of time in Jewish history. Not only did it mark the destruction of the temple, but now the people were out of their land. But they were still allowed to be Jews, interestingly enough, although they didn't really follow traditions and whatever. And the leader did rise up amongst them, a man called Ezra, who changed some of the rules, made it more comfortable to be Jewish, made it easier and less embarrassing on certain subjects to be Jewish, so they could follow the tradition. And in fact, he led the people back to return 70 years later back to Israel. Not all of them came back, but a lot of them did. It's interesting that Ezra's yahrzeit is on the 8th of Teves. And so in the Salichas prayers today that we said this morning, is mention of Ezra and what he did and how he led the return. As always with the rabbinates, they always link things that happen round about the same time to the day in question. So the first thing is the breach in the wall from the blockade of Jerusalem, the siege of Jerusalem. On the 8th of Teves, we have the death of Ezra. And on the 9th of Teves, I've got it the wrong way around. Sorry, the 9th of Teves is the death of Ezra. On the 8th of Teves, several hundred years later, in the 3rd century BCE, the Greeks Israel was under Hellenistic rule, and they decreed that the Torah, the Tanakh, would be translated into Greek. They didn't do it for any good purposes. The idea was to almost delegitimize the whole of the Tanakh, because as the famous phrase is, you lose something in translation. That's exactly what they were doing. And although it was translated by Jews, it was manipulated and changed. The end product is something we call the Septuagint, which is 70 books, which is what we have and how we mark the modern day Tanakh has 70 books. Originally, it didn't. It only had 59 books in the original Tanakh, because the 12 minor prophets were lumped together as one book, separated in writing, but as actually only as one book. I'll speak about that on another time. That is another talk I wish to give about Masoretic tradition and how it changed over time. Something Morris is very familiar with because we keep talking about this. So those are the three things which really today's one of the three fasts that talk about bad things that happen to the Jews. The 10th of Teves today, when the breach in the wall of Jerusalem first occurred, when the siege first occurred. 17th of Tammuz, which is when the breach first occurred, and then the 9th of Av, which is when the temple first destroyed. And we seem to live through, thank God, we lived through all these terrible things and terrible events. What is more amazing is that we outlive all the people who try and do harm to us. So much so that in Israel today, the Chief Rabbinate of Israel years ago declared that the 10th of Teves is known as a general Kaddish day, where people whose relatives who do not know when their Yahrzeit date is, which included all the Holocaust victims, mourned the loss of their relatives during the Holocaust or any other day where they don't actually know the Yahrzeit. So and there's also a special Kaddish is recited in shuls in Israel for this purpose. So it seems that whatever trials and tribulations we go through, we survive. We survive because we have our faith. We have a true trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we are around today, and those people, whether they're Babylonians, whether they're the Hellenistic Greeks, whether they're the Romans, whether they're the Inquisitors, whether they're the Nazis, they're not around today to do us harm. Thank God for that. I'm Yisrael Chai. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Well done, Leigh. That was really brilliant, and it was very inspiring. Thank you very much. All about today. Thank you so much. Okay, now we come on to Kabbalat Shabbat, and I welcome Stuart to lead into that for us.
Thank you very much. I really, Leigh, that was very